The USS Arizona was a super dreadnought battleship, 31,000 tons of American steel, 12 14-inch guns that could hurl a 1,400-pound shell 19 miles, armor plating 18 inches thick, built for $21 million, enough to construct an entire city in 1916. And on December 7, 1941, it took Japanese naval aviator Kiyoshi Ogawa exactly 8 seconds to turn it into an underwater tomb for 1,277 men. His aircraft cost $35,000. His bomb cost $400. Let me show you the mathematics of how floating airfields made the ultimate symbols of naval power completely worthless in a single morning. Here's the brutal mathematics. Between 1906 and 1945, the world's navies spent $40 billion building battleships. That's $800 billion in today's money. Britain alone built 174 dreadnoughts and super dreadnoughts. Each required 3,000 men to operate. Each burned 400 tons of fuel oil per day at combat speed. Each main gun barrel lasted only 200 shots before needing replacement at a cost of $250,000. The USS Iowa's 16-inch guns cost $1.5 million per barrel. Each shell cost $2,000. And here's the number that matters. Battleships sank exactly 16 enemy battleships in all of World War II. Aircraft from carriers sank 42. But here's what nobody talks about: the impossibility mathematics. A battleship's main guns had a hit probability of 0.3% at maximum range. That's 3 hits per 1,000 shells fired. At the Battle of Denmark Strait, Bismarck fired 93 shells to achieve 8 hits on Hood. That's $186,000 of ammunition for each hit. Prince of Wales fired 55 shells and achieved 3 hits. But a carrier's mathematics were different. USS Enterprise could launch 90 aircraft. Each carried either a torpedo or 1,000-pound bomb. The hit rate for dive bombers against capital ships was 18%. For torpedo bombers, 22%. A battleship needed to fire 333 shells to statistically guarantee 1 hit. A carrier needed to launch just 5 aircraft. Now, let's talk about engagement range. The longest-range battleship hit in history was Scharnhorst striking Glorious at 24,000 yards. That's 13.6 miles. Exceptional, unprecedented, never repeated. Meanwhile, carrier aircraft had a combat radius of 250 miles. That's an engagement envelope 340 times larger than a battleship's maximum gun range. The mathematics are simple. A battleship could control 580 square miles of ocean with its guns. A carrier could control 196,000 square miles. At Midway, American dive bombers found and destroyed 4 Japanese carriers at a range of 170 miles. Yamato's 18-inch guns, the largest ever mounted, couldn't have reached even 10% of that distance. The logistics tell another story. HMS Vanguard, Britain's last battleship, required 2,000 tons of fuel oil to travel 1,000 miles. That's 2 pounds of fuel per mile per ton of ship. A carrier air group could deliver the same explosive payload using 30 tons of aviation fuel. The crew requirements were even more damning. Bismarck needed 2,200 men. Tirpitz needed 2,600. Yamato needed 3,332. But here's the dark mathematics. USS Yorktown operated 90 aircraft with 2,217 men. That's 24 men per strike platform for the carrier versus 2,200 men for 1 platform on a battleship. Each battleship shell required a crew of 94 men to load, aim, and fire. Each carrier aircraft required 15 men for maintenance, arming, and launching. Let's compare actual combat effectiveness. At Guadalcanal, USS Washington fired 75 16-inch shells to sink Kirishima. Cost $150,000 in ammunition alone. Fuel consumed 30 tons. Time to sink 7 minutes. At Midway, Lieutenant Dick Best put a single 1,000-pound bomb through Akagi's flight deck. Cost of bomb $400. Fuel consumed 180 gallons. Time to mission kill 10 seconds. Akagi burned for 19 hours and was scuttled. The mathematics of efficiency aren't even comparable. One SPD Dauntless, achieving one hit, accomplished what would have required dozens of battleship salvos. But perhaps the most damning statistic: battleship construction time versus carrier conversion. Building Yamato took 4 years and $250 million. Converting USS Lexington from a battlecruiser to a carrier took 3 years and cost $45 million. Japan's carrier Akagi was converted from a battlecruiser hull for $28 million. The USS Essex-class carriers, which won the Pacific War, cost $68 million each and took 20 months to build. HMS Vanguard, Britain's last battleship, cost £11 million and took 6 years. In that same time, America built 24 Essex-class carriers. The final, darkest truth comes from the men who served. Admiral Yamamoto, who planned Pearl Harbor, wrote in 1941, "The battleship is no longer the arbiter of naval warfare. A carrier 200 miles away is more dangerous than a battleship at 20 miles." He was proven right with mathematical precision. At Pearl Harbor, 353 Japanese aircraft sank or crippled 8 battleships. Aircraft lost 29. Aircrew lost 55. American casualties 2,403. The exchange ratio was 43 Americans killed for every Japanese airman lost. When Prince of Wales and Repulse sortied without air cover in December 1941, Japanese torpedo bombers sank both in 90 minutes. Aircraft lost 3. British sailors lost 840. The math is undeniable. $40 billion invested in battleships. $800 billion in today's money. Enough to have built 10,000 B-17 bombers or 500 aircraft carriers. Instead, the world's navies built floating fortresses that were hunted down by plywood aircraft, costing less than their main gun shells. The final irony? When Yamato made its suicide run to Okinawa, it was sunk by 386 American aircraft. Not one American surface ship even saw it. The pilots who sank it were teenagers who had been in high school when the war started. The battleship era didn't fade away. It was executed in a single morning at Pearl Harbor, and every admiral who understood mathematics knew it instantly. The age of the battleship had lasted 35 years. The age of the carrier had begun with $400 bombs dropped by $35,000 aircraft. The mathematics of naval warfare had been revolutionized by simple arithmetic. Range times payload divided by cost equals victory. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.